What if I told you the defending NBA champions might be planning to dismantle their roster? Not because of injuries or locker room drama, but because of money. And worse, not to build something better, but just to survive. That's the terrifying reality Celtics fans might be forced to confront. After unloading both Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in rapid succession, Boston shaved a staggering $41 million off its tax bill. But make no mistake, this wasn't about cap space to chase stars or a stealth rebuild. According to Jay King of The Athletic, the Celtics are still not done. The next potential domino, Anfernee Simons, the 26-year-old microwave scorer they just landed from Portland. You read that right? Boston might flip Simons without him ever playing a single game for the team. Why? Because re-signing Luke Kornet and Al Horford, yes, role players, is reportedly such a financial burden under the NBA's current CBA rules that trading away a starting caliber guard on an expiring deal is on the table. Let that sink in. The Celtics might trade away real talent just to keep the veterans, one of whom is 38 years old. But here's where it gets really wild. This isn't just about Simons. This is about a franchise backed into a financial corner so tight that even minor luxury tax violations trigger repeat offender penalties. The Celtics have crossed the line too many times. Now, every dollar counts and every mistake is magnified. There's growing belief within league circles that Boston is preparing to take a step back on purpose, eating this coming season in hopes of resetting the repeater tax for 2026. But is that short-term P ain't really worth it? Could Boston survive losing both? Technically, yes, but what if this isn't about survival? What if it's a slow, calculated teardown masquerading as fiscal responsibility? And here's the part no one wants to say out loud. By trading Jrue, Porzingis, and now possibly Simons, Brad Stevens might already be admitting something brutal. They're not trying to repeat, they're trying to reset. It's a strategy that seems more like something out of a small market franchise than one of the most storied teams in NBA history. If Boston trades Simons and fails to re-sign Horford or Kornet, it won't just be a competitive step back, it will be a cultural shift. He just signed the biggest contract in NBA history, but he didn't do it to be the centerpiece of a team that's financially flexible. He did it to win. Again, right now, if Horford walks and Simons is dumped, Boston isn't just losing talent. It's sending a message to the locker room that the front office is planning for tomorrow, not today. So maybe this isn't just about one trade. Maybe this is the beginning of the end of a Celtics era that peaked with one ring and folded trying to stay rich. And as the rest of the East arms up, the Knicks, Bucks, Sixers, even the Magic, Boston might be watching from the luxury of cap space and the mediocrity of missed opportunity. Will Celtics fans be patient enough to endure a reset disguised as sustainability? Or are we about to witness the fastest post-title fade-out in recent NBA history? Is Derek White really untouchable? Celtics set an astronomical asking price, but what are they hiding? What if the Boston Celtics aren't just protecting Derek White, but overvaluing him to hide a deeper plan? At first glance, it seems simple. The reigning champs are demanding a Mikal Bridges-type haul, yes. The 5 first-round picks plus assets kind of haul in return for White. That's what Jake Fisher of the Stein line reported, and it sent a shockwave through the league. Teams are calling, Boston is listening. But then comes the dagger. They're not really negotiating. Why? Why put that kind of price tag on a player most fans outside Boston still consider a third option at best? Here's the uncomfortable possibility no one wants to say out loud. This isn't about Derek White's value. It's about controlling the narrative and delaying a storm that might already be brewing inside the Celtics front office. Let's dig into the truth behind the smoke. White, statistically speaking, is coming off a strong season, minus 76 games, 16.4 points, 4.8 assists, 4.5 rebounds, and an efficient 38.4% from deep. He was the Celtics' most reliable two-way guard, a defensive anchor, a floor spacer, and at times, the only adult in the backcourt when chaos reigned. But a Mikal Bridges package, that's generational value. So the question becomes, is this about driving teams away or driving someone else out? Because here's what Celtics fans haven't been told. Multiple execs around the league have quietly questioned whether Boston's front office believes Jaylen Brown and Derek White can coexist long-term. The Holiday trade already shook the locker room, and now, with the Porzingis deal dismantling the starting 5, suddenly Derek White's name is all over the rumor mill. That doesn't happen by accident. If Brad Stevens is serious about building a new identity for this team, one centered around a more cost-controlled, youth-heavy, tax-friendly version of the Celtics, Then putting a sky-high asking price on White does two things at once. It buys time for Boston to evaluate the market post-free agency. It signals to teams, we're not giving him away unless you blow us away, but that also means something else is likely happening behind the scenes. Could Boston be floating White as bait while planning something far bigger? Perhaps a multi-team deal, or an eventual salary-clearing move tied to the repeater tax reset. Because let's be honest, this isn't about whether Derek White is worth 5 picks, it's about what 5 picks represent in today's NBA: flexibility, control, leverage. And it's the kind of demand that doesn't necessarily mean we want to trade him. It could mean we want to control when and how the rebuild starts, or, more shockingly, who it starts with. Is it possible Boston is floating both White and Brown to see who gets more traction on the market and then commits to trading one? Jake Fisher did say both names are being discussed. Did the Celtics just draft a future star, or a massive mistake? The Hugo Gonzalez gamble explained with the 28th overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Boston selected Hugo Gonzalez, a name that barely made headlines in the US, but sent shockwaves across Europe and raised eyebrows inside NBA front offices. So why did Brad Stevens, the same executive who built a championship roster with ruthless efficiency, suddenly roll the dice on a foreign teenager who may not even crack the rotation next year? Here's where things get truly wild. This wasn't just a draft pick. It was a statement. Because what the Celtics are really saying is this: they don't expect to be the same team next season, and they're not pretending otherwise. With Jason Tatum set to miss a significant chunk of the year, Boston is facing something it hasn't experienced in years: uncertainty. And instead of patching holes with short-term veterans or chasing bargain trades, the Celtics chose something radical, a leap of faith. So who is Hugo Gonzalez, and why now? Gonzalez isn't just another international project. He's been competing at a high level in Europe's brutal pro circuit, often facing grown men while still technically a teenager. He's long, athletic, and fearless, and according to multiple scouts, he's mentally tougher than most NCAA lottery picks. But that's not what shocked people. What shocked people is that Boston took him in the first round, in a draft class stacked with experienced college wings who were far more NBA-ready. So what did Brad Stevens see? Stevens himself tried to explain it, but his answer left more questions than answers. When we played against Real Madrid years ago, he said, Luka Doncic was 16 and barely got in. Hugo's a little older, and I'm not comparing them. But even more telling was Stevens' comment about Hugo's mentality. Most of these guys have never sat. Hugo accepts any role. That's not a learned trait. Translation: most rookies come in thinking they're the next Kobe. Hugo knows he has to grind. And Boston, amid one of the most uncertain seasons in recent memory, wants humility, hunger, and upside, not ego. But there's another layer to this pick that nobody's talking about. Is Boston using Hugo Gonzalez as a strategic diversion? While fans focus on the romantic idea of developing talent, execs across the league suspect something else is at play: stealth roster management. Think about it. With Tatum out and the roster already gutted from financial cuts, including the loss of Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, the Celtics needed a way to pivot without publicly declaring a rebuild. Enter Hugo. This is the part nobody wants to discuss, but we will. What if Gonzalez flames out? What if he doesn't adjust to the speed or physicality of the NBA? What if this turns into another Gershon Yabusele situation? A forgotten pick while the team scrambles to fill holes with G League contracts and veteran minimums. If that happens, the Celtics will have wasted a rare chance to add immediate help in a championship window that's already closing faster than most fans realize. Jaylen Brown to the Kings. The wild trade idea that could shatter the Celtics dynasty, and why it might not be so crazy. What if the Boston Celtics, fresh off a championship, with two franchise players in their prime, are secretly considering detonating it all? That's not a hot take. That's the uncomfortable whisper creeping through the league. Jaylen Brown might not be as untouchable as the Celtics want you to think. And now, in one of the most unexpected twists of the NBA offseason, the Sacramento Kings, yes, those Kings, have been floated as a dark horse suitor for Brown, the 2024 Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals MVP, a move so shocking, so out of left field, that it makes you stop and ask, what does Boston know that we don't? During a recent episode of The Low Post, respected ESPN insider Zach Lowe casually dropped a bomb. The Kings come to mind. I wouldn't slam the door shut on some team, the Kings being one, offering all the swaps, all the picks, whatever Boston wants. Wait, the Kings, A team that hasn't landed a top-tier superstar via trade in decades. A franchise known more for misfires than master plans. That's exactly why this is so compelling. Sacramento has stockpiled assets. They have young players. They have the contracts. And most importantly, they're desperate. Desperate to make the leap from feel-good playoff team to legitimate contender. And what better way to do that than by stealing the finals MVP from the champs? But let's not get distracted by Sacramento's motives. The real story is why this is even on the table at all. So ask yourself, if Stevens was committed to continuity, why is the core being quietly dismantled? The answer might be brutal. There's growing suspicion that Boston sees this season as a pivot year. Tatum is expected to miss significant time. The tax penalties are crushing. And in the new CBA era, even championship teams aren't safe from financial collapse. That's where Jaylen Brown comes in. He's owed over $300 million. Locked into a Supermax deal that already looks massive under the current rules. And wow, he just brought home a ring and 2 MVPs. Executives across the league quietly question whether Brown is built to be the long-term a Tatum-led dynasty, especially one that needs more playmaking and spacing in critical playoff moments. The answer might be yes. And here's why it might happen anyway, because this could be Boston's last chance to cash in on Brown at peak value. He's coming off a historic postseason. His trade kicker makes deals harder after this summer, and the Celtics are facing a cap nightmare that threatens to limit their flexibility for years. So what's more valuable right now, a loyal star with flaws, or the opportunity to reshape your entire future around Tatum and a new wave of complementary talent?